Welcome to Let's Rewatch It Again. I'm Jordan, and today we are going to be talking about the Grey's Anatomy episode that aired after the Super Bowl. If you've never watched Grey's Anatomy before, don't worry, because this episode was actually created so that millions of viewers who have never even noticed the show before could drop right in, splash around, and know exactly what's happening and be entertained at the same time. Originally, our show creator, Shonda Rhimes, wanted at least 10 more minutes tacked on to the end of the episode. She just wanted a little more room to tell the story. Instead, ABC was like, girl, we got you. You get 2 hours. Since I've only talked about Grey's Anatomy one time before on this podcast, I'm going to give you a little bit of a quick look into the show. Grey's Anatomy focuses on the lives of surgical interns, residents, and attendings as they develop into seasoned doctors while balancing personal and professional relationships. That kind of sums it up in the most simplest, almost bland way possible, because this show is full of chaos, full of intrigue, and the personal part of the show is the reason why I watch. I don't care about the medical stuff. It's somewhat interesting sometimes. Most of the time it's just disgusting. What I care about is the characters and what they are going through together, and the friendships most of all. I don't even care about the romance. I want to focus on friendships. I think they're way more fascinating. Now, this series follows Meredith Grey, hence Grey's Anatomy, and she is the daughter of a famous general surgeon named Ellis Grey. Everybody knows who her mom is. It's kind of a problem. The beginning of the show series starts with her as her first day as an intern at Seattle Gray's Hospital, which is a fictional hospital in Seattle. During her time as an intern, she works alongside 4 fellow physicians that become the magic of the show. Yes, I'm saying it like that on purpose, because we've got Meredith Grey, Alex Karev, George O'Malley, Izzie Stevens, and Cristina Yang. The most important of all, in my opinion. Now, a lot of people think of this show as being about the romance, the sauciness, the spiciness of romance, but in my personal opinion, this show is about Meredith and Cristina and their friendship, and the friendship of the 5 interns that create the magic of this show. After that, it's just all fluff. In my opinion, it's all drama, it's intrigue, it's exciting, but the main core of the show, in my opinion, is how the 5 of them grow as doctors and as friends together into some kind of odd family. All right, now, as I've said, if you've never seen Grey's Anatomy before, just know that there's a lot of characters. There's tons of plot lines all happening at once. Everything intertwines, entangles, and ties into a myriad of ways. It can be a little confusing, but I have to say this episode did a wonderful job of guiding us into the drama, entertaining us at the same time, and not allowing us to feel too lost, but kind of like peppering in plot lines to like, okay, now this is where we're going with this guy, and with this person over here, and this person over here, and oh, what about this? So if you don't love one plot line, there's gonna be another one introduced in the next few minutes. Just wait around. Now, our creator, Shonda Rhimes, knew that she had 10 minutes, and that 10 minutes had to be tight, intriguing, and somewhat saucy to keep as many viewers watching as possible. 38 million stayed. That's how good she is. She knew if she could get people to watch for 10 minutes, she could keep them watching for the next 2 hours. And she did. Our episode begins with a burst of white light with a heartbeat underneath. Meredith Grey, as always, has a voiceover. That's how she begins every single episode and usually ends the episode as well. I personally love that. If you've listened to my podcast before, you know I love a good voiceover. She ends her voiceover by asking the question, what's the one thing you've always dreamed of doing before you die? And then we get our title sequence, Grey's Anatomy, with drum beats. I'm already stressed and so excited all at once. Now, if you made it this far into the video, I need you to go ahead and leave your answer to Meredith's question in the comments below. After our title sequence, we have a rock music with a fantasy dream. Clearly it's a dream because everything is white and steamy, and this is how we're going to keep our Super Bowl viewers interested, because we've got 3 naked ladies. Now, you can't see any of their parts, but it's heavily implied that they're all in the shower together, bathing one another, and there's the steamy hot water and giant sponges that look very uncomfortable to be bathed with. I don't want to use those. That doesn't look like something I want. whatever. And they're all wearing perfect makeup. Their hair is all amazing. And there's wind coming from a lot of different directions, to me, which just seems super drafty. Now, of course, it's a fantasy dream, and it's George's fantasy. He's deeply in love with Meredith. Poor guy. It's just not gonna happen. Poor George wakes up by crashing to his bedroom floor as Izzie comes into his room and sneezes all over her own hand and announces that something is wrong with Meredith. Izzie and George make the right move and call in Cristina, the only person who can handle Meredith at any moment in time. Meredith says that she has a feeling that she's going to die, and Cristina is like, you might. We're all gonna die eventually. Come on, we're late. Cristina, absolute favorite character of all time. And Meredith smacks her bed and goes, Cristina. And then Cristina takes a thoughtful pose on the edge of the bed and crosses her arms and goes, okay, this is me being supportive. And Meredith sighs and says, okay, the man I love has a wife. The man chooses her. And then that wife takes my dog. Okay, well, she didn't take my dog. I gave the dog to her. But now she's got my McDreamy, my McDog. She's got my McLife. What am I supposed to do with that? What have I got? In that little bit of exposition, we know exactly what's going on with Meredith, why she doesn't want to go to work, and why, yeah, I'd be pretty upset too. I don't know that I would believe I'm going to die, but it would definitely feel like my life isn't going well. And then Meredith gets a little bit sadder and says, you know, I can't even remember the last time we kissed. You think you have forever, but you don't. And then we get a little bit silly. Plus my conditioner stopped working and I think I have brittle bones. Cristina takes all of this in, slowly gets up, rips off the blankets, and stands on the bed and kicks Meredith out of it. Yes, very good, Cristina. We then get a wide establishing shot of the Seattle Needle, allowing our viewers to know exactly our location. And that is the last time we leave the hospital. In the commentary for this episode, the writer, director, and the editor spoke about how they wanted all the scenes to feel really tight, close, and almost claustrophobic. The only things that matter are within these walls. Dr. Weber, our chief of surgery, is looking at the OR board, and it's looking a little blank. Dr. Burke, our head of cardio, says, it's a quiet board. That's a bad sign. Derek Shepard, McDreamy, by the way, walks up and says the same thing. Oh, that's so not good, guys. Why'd you have to do that? Burke and Derek whisper behind Weber's back, and he says, a quiet board is trouble, means death. Meanwhile, the boys are totally distracted. As Chief Weber walks away, Derek asks Dr. Burke why he can't call him by his first name. They've known each other for a while. Isn't it time he calls him Preston? And Dr. Burke is like, no. Honestly, I don't think most people have the privilege of calling Dr. Burke Preston. He's not a Preston. He's Burke or Dr. Burke. Cristina, his own girlfriend, doesn't even call him Preston. Also, peep at Dr. Burke's scrub cap. It's different today. It's new. Shonda Rhimes noted that this is his superhero scrub cap. Yes. Meanwhile, Meredith is standing in the pit, also known as like the ER area, but we call it the pit. And Derek asks her if she's all right, and she says, I have a feeling. I get those. And it'll pass. They have a long moment of eye contact, and she walks away, and we pause on his face, and he looks so heartbroken. And then our camera swings a few inches to the left, and here's Addison, his wife. Now I just want to note that when Derek and Meredith fell in love, Meredith did not know he was married, and Derek had basically closed off his entire life from his past. He moved from New York City to Seattle and pretended like he was completely starting over. And he fell deeply in love with Meredith. But as of now, he has decided to make his marriage work with Addison because now she lives here too. Unfortunately, he's decided to make his marriage work with her as best as he can. And I say unfortunately because I think I have not been recording this whole time. Now I say unfortunately because I think he doesn't actually want his marriage to work out. He really does love Meredith, but he wants to do the right thing, especially by Addison, who he did love. Now, our 5 interns are waiting outside for an ambulance to arrive, all hopeful that a surgery is going to show up for one of them to jump into. And Izzie gives us a quick exposition on her story arc with Alex. He cheated on her with a nurse, and she's telling him he has no more chances. Okay. And Cristina just wonders aloud, what surgeon is she going to have to suck up to today? And then we hear Bailey's voice, and she's saying that she has been gone for 2 weeks, and they have run off every single resident that has been in charge of them, and nobody wants my interns. I don't have time for this. I'm pregnant. I'm supposed to be on bed rest. I'm supposed to be calm. Do I look calm to you? Did I raise you to behave like this? I'm sorry, Bailey is my absolute favorite character. I love her so much. One of my favorite things about Bailey is the dynamic that she has with her interns and how she almost treats them like they're her children, like she really did raise them. And honestly, it feels like that. It's only been a year that they've been interns with her, but it feels like 10. George hugs Bailey and she says, "I'm not back." And then an ambulance shows up and Bailey starts giving out orders as if she is back. And Izzie is supposed to get her a wheelchair and George needs to call Dr. Addison Shepherd. And so he asks her, "What should I tell Dr. Addison Shepherd when I give her the page?" And then we hear splash. But Dr. Bailey's water has broken all over George's shoes. Oh, okay. The ambulance doors open and a woman screeches from inside, but apparently she's fine. Meredith leads her away and our camera pans to Alex and Cristina to gauge their reaction before we see Christina Ricci, of all people, as an EMT with her hand inside a man's chest cavity. That's right, inside. Drum beats and haunting music lead us closer into the damage, and we see that she's all the way up to her wrist inside the man. Important note, drums were almost exclusively used as part of the score. They decided to add in a few other voices and instruments as well as a track or two, but drums lead us into the intensity and tell us how stressed we should be as the audience. It's an incredible tool, and honestly, I feel like it's one of the main reasons why I love this episode so much is the way it was edited together. The camera shots, the quick cuts, the drum beats that kind of follow your own heartbeat. It's so incredibly well done. Cristina and Burke walk down a set of stairs and several hallways as she updates him on the case. Our camera is in front of them moving backward, giving us a feeling of movement and agency without panic, which is very cool. It makes us feel like we are moving along at their same speed and keeping up with them. Burke asks where she was that morning, and she just says, "I had a thing." And he's like, "Here we are again. We go to sleep. I think everything is fine. And then I wake up and you're just a little bit crazy." I know this is supposed to be funny, but I think there's a lot of underlying truth for him here. Burke, Cristina, and Meredith are now in a room with the man and Christina Ricci, who we find out is named Hannah in this episode. We also find out that she only put her hand inside the man's chest to stop the bleeding, and every time she moves, he starts to bleed out again, so she really cannot move or leave the situation. A fellow EMT is scolding her for putting her hand inside the patient, and she's annoyed at him like, "Well, I know that now." Hey, we all gotta learn sometime. On the other side of the window, we can see that the man's wife is still screaming. I mean, like, true screaming. Burke tells Hannah and Meredith to take the man into the OR, and Cristina asks to go, and he's like, "No, I have a thing." I have a love-hate relationship with Burke. I absolutely love him. I respect him. I adored him as a character. Until the end of season 3, I think. Yeah, I think that's about where it just... No, I want to say beginning, middle of season 3. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want to give you any spoilers. Izzie and Alex are trying their best to stop the woman screaming, but it's like every time she opens her mouth, she just screams instead of talking. Olivia, the nurse, walks past, and as she does, the woman turns to follow and just keeps screaming after her movement. It's such a great way to give levity in a situation that feels awful. Cristina and Izzie escape with Olivia, and Alex leans into the woman's face and yells. And then she gets really quiet and then starts squeaking and then just bawling. So that didn't really work, but at least she's not screeching anymore. Chief finds George staring through the slim window of a hospital door, and George announces Bailey's back. And then Chief peeks in and is like, "O'Malley, Bailey is exposed." "Yes, sir. She's having her cervix examined by Dr. Montgomery Shepherd. She's in labor." "O'Malley, stop looking." The camera shows us an amazing shot of George and Chief standing on either side of the door frame, leaning back with pride and comfort. And it's like they're two pillars of strength now that Bailey has returned. And like everything is right with the world. Derek shows up and looks in the window and he's like, "Oh, there's an image I won't forget soon." This feels like another scene for the Super Bowl viewers because I don't know. It feels like that thing where you're at church and the pastor goes, "Can I get an amen? Y'all awake out there? Like, just checking. We're still talking about the girls' parts." Like, ew, gross. Bailey comes out and says that she's waiting for her husband and that she's fine and everyone needs to go away. George takes on the responsibility of calling Tuck, her husband. Izzie and Cristina take on a case with a man from a car accident who asks about his wife. She should be here. She... Derek walks in and it's a neuro case. All of this is happening super fast. As things usually do on Grey's Anatomy, we cut quickly from like case to case, scene to scene, and it's really easy and fluid to keep up because you feel like you're part of the action of the hospital. We then get a quick little synopsis about who the man is, Tucker Jones, age 35, and Cristina interrupts Izzie. And Derek asks Mr. Jones how he is, and a phone rings in the background. And Mr. Jones is like, "That's my wife, I need to answer it." He sounds like he's like super out of it, but trying super hard to stay with it. Derek tells Izzie to answer the phone, and Cristina gives her a, look, like, "I'm more important for this case than you are." Mr. Jones starts seizing, like epileptic type of seizing, and Izzie answers the phone and starts arguing with George on the other side. "I think I would know if I had Bailey's husband's phone, George." And then she stares after Cristina and Derek as they wheel him away to an OR. What's his name? Full body chills every single time. Whew. In the OR with Meredith and Burke, Hannah says she's fine, but her hand is going numb. They assure her everything is fine, and she can leave as soon as Burke gets started. What's fun about having Christina Ricci as Hannah is that in a way, we as viewers feel like we already know her. Ricci has a way with her character that makes us feel like she is the Meredith of her own story. Like there's a whole nother show about EMT. Derek and Burke are both scrubbing into their surgeries, and Addison comes in, and the three discuss that Bailey's husband is going into surgery, but they won't tell her until they know how serious it is. I both love and hate that. I feel like she should know, but also she is in labor, so it probably is best to wait a little bit longer until they really know how bad everything is before they update her. But I don't know. It's just, it's difficult all around. Then Addison calls Burke Preston, and he calls her Addison right back. And Derek is like, "She gets to call you by your first name and I don't? I like her. You don't like me?" "No." I feel like in a way, that's why Burke and Cristina get along so well, is they're both so blunt and way too honest. Derek takes a moment to talk to Tucker before he goes under, and Tucker says Miranda Bailey likes you. "Well, I like her. We're having a baby." And then Derek says, "I know. I'm going to take care of it." Derek speaks so soft and calm. He has one of the best bedside manners as the doctors, truly. I honestly think that Derek and George have two of the best bedside manners of everybody in the show. I love the way that they interact with patients. A bloody cloth transitions us back to the pit where Alex and a male nurse, whose name I can never remember but we see all the time, are discussing how the screaming woman has blood all over her, but it's not hers. The woman has calmed down and says she's in shock, and that when she gets her hand on her husband, she's going to kill him. Another man shows up, the friend, apparently her husband and her moron best friend, reenact World War II battles. They decided to build some kind of big gun, an exact replica of the M918 bazooka. Dear God. I mean, just saying bazooka in general sounds massive, but to think that you have one in your backyard. What is going on? The man is insistent, by the way, his name is Paul, that they followed the specifications perfectly. 1.5 pound rocket. It's a beauty. I'm the shooter. James is the loader. And then the wife is yelling, "It didn't work." So like an idiot, my husband stands in front of the loaded gun and the toy finally decided to go off. Alex is standing between them and trying to piece everything together. A gentle drum beat leads us into a quiet panic as Alex says, "Wait, he shot himself with a bazooka?" "Correct. Was there an explosion?" "No. Why?" The man realizes what he's saying a second after Alex. Oh crap. Again, full body chills. This episode does not stop. Alex runs off as the drum beats get louder and faster, and a guitar riff joins the beat as Alex runs to catch Burke. Because Burke is about to cut into this man. At the same moment, Derek starts surgery and Bailey's husband, as she calls him yet again on her flip phone. Burke asks Hannah if she's ready and asks for a scalpel. Our cuts get quicker and the scenes get shorter as the drums and guitars hasten in their tempo. And then we hear Bailey shout, "I am having your baby here," into the phone, and she's holding it out in the air like this cannot be happening to me. And Alex is still running as we see George notice that Tucker's phone is ringing yet again. Burke is counting down, which is something that would never happen, but we're using for this episode specifically when Alex runs in and says, "Dr. Burke, I need to speak to you, sir." The drum booms with each cut of the camera from Burke to Alex, back to Burke, back to Alex. "You want to talk to me, sir." Alex is standing in the doorway with like the door blocking half of his body while he's talking to Burke. The great thing is we don't hear their conversation. Instead, we overhear Hannah asking Meredith if Alex is single. God, it's just like the two main things that Grey's Anatomy has: ultimate intensity and the romance. This camera zooms from wide to close on Alex and Burke as they both stare openly at Hannah. Alex steps out and closes the door, and Burke calmly asks Hannah, "What do you feel inside Mr. Carlson? Is your hand touching anything hard, like metal?" I don't know. Don't move your hand, just feel." And then Meredith is like, "Dr. Burke, what's going on?" "Hannah, my fingers are touching something kind of hard." "Yeah, definitely hard." Dr. Milton, the anesthesiologist, realizes it before anyone else and says, "Oh my God." I don't know why he would know, but okay, whatever. And Hannah's like, "What? What is it? What's wrong?" And we close up on each character's face as they speak. And Burke says, "Hannah, I don't want you to move your hand, not your body, not an inch. You should know you're starting to scare me. It's going to be fine. Dr. Grey, could you, Meredith goes to Dr. Burke and he says softly, "I want you to go out of this room, walk, don't run. Go to the charge nurse and let him know we have a code black." "I'm sorry, code black?" "Tell him that I am sure. Tell him to call the bomb squad." We zoom and circle Meredith's face and cut to black. Again, full body chills. Oh! The brilliant thing about cutting at this moment is that it's about halfway through a normal episode length. There's a commercial break, but the entire story is set up with all of the tension rising and rising. You do not need to go to the bathroom right now. No, do not move out of your chair. Don't get up off that couch. Burke makes everyone except for Hannah and Dr. Milton leave the surgical room. He says he'll wait for the bomb squad and everyone else has to leave. Meredith stays along with a few others because, as Meredith puts it, you need a surgical team after the bomb squad is finished. That is true, okay. He tells them to wait in the elevator area, which is a little bit farther down the hallway. And now Bailey's contractions are 8 minutes apart. That is getting pretty close. I'm a little surprised that she came to the hospital before her contractions were at least 7 minutes apart, but all right, here we are. Addison is urging Bailey to take an epidural and she's refusing, all out. Women all over the world give birth at home with nothing but a pair of scissors and a bucket of hot water. And we get a moment of ridiculousness as George claims that women all over the world die at home giving birth. And Bailey goes, "Aren't you supposed to be finding my husband?" Right, yes. Addison's pager goes off and the drum beats follow Addison out of the room and we check in on Tucker's surgery. And Derek's pager is also going off. Christina checks the page and reports, "They want us to evacuate. The note on your pager said code black." And then Derek looks up in her direction. We just see his eyes because in his surgical area, he's got a scrub cap. He has like these glasses things on that like magnify so he can see deeper inside the brain. And then, his mouth is covered by a surgical mask. So only his eyes lift up to Christina and he says, "Are you sure they said that?" The drums in this episode, you guys, I can't. Grey's Anatomy is so good with their score, and especially the sound effects. All the tiny sounds we may not even notice. Something as simple as like the sucking sound when the surgeon says suction is so powerful. Like the sound effects of the surgical room are like other characters in the scene. Derek gives everyone in the room the option to leave, but no one moves. Because apparently no one knows what code black means. Put a pin in that. Izzie gets in the elevator with George and Addison and reports to Addison that Derek said it's going to be a few more hours and to tell Dr. Bailey. The pagers are still going off, and George and Izzie both have no idea what code black means. Okay, I almost entered the medical field. I know, it was a really bad idea for me. And when I say that I almost, I mean like I literally went to the first day of radiology tech school. Now I know that's not like serious medical stuff, but I did go through a lot of medical classes, and I had to go through a lot of orientation days, like 2 solid orientation days that were 8 hours each. And one of them, we spent like 2 full hours talking about the codes of the hospital. Like, one of them was code black, which means that there is a bomb on the premises or an active shooter. Now, I think that nowadays they probably separated out those 2 things, but hello, like everybody should know what this means. It bugs me a lot that the interns have no idea what the code means because they should know all of the colors by heart. However, the show writers wanted the interns to feel like kids and that everyone else, as the residents and attendings, to feel like the adults with all of the knowledge and situation. So we're going to try to suspend belief that, of course, the interns have no idea what's going on. They're just children. Ugh. Addison just tells them to go back to their locker room and wait for instructions. I don't think that's good enough either, Addison. If we're being told to evacuate, I feel like the entire hospital should be evacuated, but whatever. The elevator door opens and the pit is filled with people all talking at once. This is a great effect because normally in the hospital, everyone is dressed in scrubs, but now we have a sea of black clothing that has taken over. Hannah and Dr. Milton are standing over Mr. Carlson's body. He's the one with the bazooka in his chest. Hannah, of course, is still stuck inside the chest cavity, and Dr. Milton is squeezing the manual respirator, which is called the ambu bag. The manual respirator is to show we have detached from oxygen, and we are manually breathing for the patient. So each squeeze is a breath. The hiss was added in as a more ominous sound, so that we would feel each breath with Mr. Carlson, even though he is completely out. So Hannah asked Dr. Burke, so I'm touching live, unexploded ammunition. Dr. Burke is standing as far from her as possible, leaning against a table with his arms crossed. It's not often that we see him stressed, and like this to me, with his stance, is the most stressed we've probably ever seen him, or ever will see him. The camera is just above the room, angled down from a far corner, showing us how empty and dark the surgical room is, which is usually filled with bright white light. Hannah asks if he's hooked up to the machine anymore and if Mr. Carlson can hear her, and Dr. Burke says, Dr. Milton is manually breathing for him. The flow of oxygen poses a danger, and no, he can't hear you. Hannah takes a moment. Her eyes are like giant. We zoom in on the manual respirator, the ambu bag, and we hear another and Dr. Burke says, Hannah, and then she looks up at him and says, what if I just move my hand really quickly? The ammo might shift and cause it to explode. We have to wait for the bomb squad. And Hannah just nods like, okay, right, yeah. And then we hear the squeeze hiss of the ambu bag. Hannah, your hand is keeping Mr. Carlson from bleeding out. You are keeping him alive. Right, and the bomb squad is coming? The bomb squad is coming. Down in the pit, the chief is announcing plans for rerouting patients to Seattle Presbyterian and Mercy West. There's no danger to the north, south, or west wings of the hospital, only the east surgical wing. He also says that anyone who wants to leave can. That's really nice to hear. Addison, George, and Izzie follow after the chief, and he says that all surgical rooms have been evacuated with the exception of Dr. Burke's team. And Izzie speaks up and says, well, in Dr. Shepard's team, they're still in OR too. The bomb squad has arrived. The ding of an elevator opens to reveal our bomb squad leader, Dylan Young, who's played by Kyle Chandler, who you might recognize from Friday Night Lights, Wolf of Wall Street, or Zero Dark 30. I haven't seen any of those, but his face feels familiar to me. He greets Meredith and says they need to secure the area, and she's assured him that the rest of the floor has been evacuated. That's when OR2 is discovered with people inside, and Dylan scolds Meredith, and she's like, I'm not in charge here. Cristina! And Cristina is blocking the OR door with her full body, and Meredith quickly says, oh, no, she will hurt him. Cristina asks Meredith what's going on, and she goes, bomb in a body cavity. And Cristina gets all disappointed and goes, man, all I've got is Bailey's husband's brain open. Meredith asks her, Shepard's got Bailey's husband on the table? The girls are now whispering and getting closer to each other as they talk, and Dylan gets pissed. He's like, excuse me, stop talking. Cristina makes a face, and Meredith nods at her like, right? We find Izzie in an empty hallway above the pit twirling her hair, and George joins her and gives her half of his sandwich. As Izzie asks if it's wrong that they're jealous of Meredith and Cristina because they're on the bomb floor and they're not. And George says, it's not a reflection on our character. It's about feeling useless. We couldn't even get Meredith out of bed this morning. We had to call Cristina. It's embarrassing. That's when Izzie says that Meredith and Cristina are doers. And George is like, they do. They're doers. And then Izzie sadly says, and we watch. The camera keeps giving us close-ups of their faces when they speak, and when they get quiet, we get a side view showing that they are still sitting and still just watching, not doing. Down below, Izzie sees Alex is a part of the chaos and says, we have to become doers. And George is like, yeah, fight for what we want. Izzie jumps up and goes, we have to do. And George is like, oh, we're starting right now. Okay. Izzie finds Alex in a lounge getting a cup of coffee, and he starts yammering on about how it's like the apocalypse, but she's definitely not listening. She's here to do. And apparently what she wants to do is him in the supply room right now. Again, we're making sure that our Super Bowl viewers are still listening. A light flicking off cuts us to Dr. Shepard's OR with Dylan standing in the doorway demanding that he evacuate now. And Derek says, I've got a guy on the table with his brain exposed. I'm not going to leave him to die. The rest of you can go. Suction. Only 2 people stay with Derek. Dylan says, you do whatever you have to do. The chief of surgery has given me authority to tell you that you cannot stay here. And Derek answers that the chief of surgery doesn't scare me. Bailey scares me. I am literally obsessed with the amount of respect that Bailey has in this hospital. Obsessed. Bailey has reached 9 centimeters dilated. Okay, we're literally about to have this baby. Addison is very distracted when told this. And Bailey is like, where exactly is my husband? And finally, Addison goes, he's with my husband. Instead of hearing their conversation, we are on the other side of an interior window with the blinds open. We see that Bailey leans over the edge of the bed in despair as Addison fills her in. I love this because we already know exactly what's going on. What we want to know now is how Bailey is going to react. And the fact that she now has to give birth while Tucker is in surgery. God, it's a lot. Burke, Dylan, and another bomb squad member are looking at the x-rays of Hannah's hand inside Mr. Carlson's body. Burke says the longer they wait, the bigger the risk that he bleeds out and dies. The 3 of them just keep studying the x-rays, frozen in indecision. And I just feel like there is not enough urgency with these men right now. Like, come on! We go back into the OR room with Hannah and Dr. Milton, and Dr. Milton says, pink mist. That's what the bomb squad calls you when you blow up. Bomb goes off, and anyone in range explodes into a billion pieces. You're liquid. There's nothing left. We close in on Hannah's face as he continues, and he's just like, you're just flecks of human flesh and blood. Sometimes they don't even find a finger. 1 minute you're a person, the next you're bloody rain. Bro, you are so not helping right now. Like, are you kidding me with this? Dr. Milton looks at Hannah and hands her the ambu bag, and he tells her to squeeze in even beats. And then he starts to move away. She looks up in a panic and is like, Dr. Milton? And he says, I've got kids. He grabs onto the door, starts to open it, and tells her, even beats, okay? And then he just leaves her standing alone. Are you kidding me right now? Like, okay. The reason why they did this with Dr. Milton, not only to leave Hannah by herself, which is a plot device, it's fantastic, but also they wanted to show the human reaction that a lot of us would have of like, I can't be here. I can't turn into pink mist. I have to leave. You have to stay. So I'm going to help the patient by giving you the ambu bag, but I definitely have to leave this room. Mr. Carlson's wife, Mindy, is asking about her husband, and the chief can't give her very much information because, well, it's not great. His best friend, Paul, is still very sorry, and Mindy is so not having it. She starts to cry, and she goes, I guess I should look on the bright side. At least it can't get any worse. This is as bad as it gets, right? Why? Why do people ask that question? It's like we're asking for something terrible to happen. George finds Dr. Bailey looking for her suitcase because apparently she's going home. And George is like, Dr. Bailey, you're having a baby. There's not going to be any baby born today. I'm holding it in. Another contraction hits her and she starts to cry and bends over and grips the blanket and says, I can't do this without my husband. Cristina and Meredith are watching through a window at the x-rays when Cristina goes to take a peek at the OR with Hannah. Cristina and Meredith begin asking questions one after the other. Is it me or is Hannah shaking? Is she squeezing the ambu bag? Where is Dr. Milton? Meredith opens the door and asks Hannah where she went. And Hannah's just like, he left. We watch as Hannah starts to truly panic. I mean, she's like quivering like a little chihuahua. And she says, I think I'm going to take my hand out now. Back in the x-ray room, the men are entirely too slow and calm about this. Burke says her hand is holding the device steady. And then Dylan says, my guys talked to the friend. It's homemade, which means it's unstable and unreliable. Burke looks back behind him, I'm sure assuming that Cristina is watching, and she's not. Then we hear Cristina call out, hey, somebody help. Dylan, Burke, and the other guy burst back into the room where Cristina and Meredith are trying to calm Hannah down. Hannah, remember, you're keeping him from bleeding out. No, I am 22 years old. I shouldn't even be in here. She's panicking. We need to clear the room. That's Dylan, the bomb squad leader. And Meredith is like, I'm not leaving her. And Burke is like, Grey, I'm not leaving her. They all start talking at once as Meredith tries to reassure Hannah, and Hannah just keeps shaking her head and saying, it's gotta come out, it's gotta come out. And the music begins to rise in tempo, and our camera cuts quicker and choppier from each person to each person, and everyone starts yelling over one another, and Hannah yanks her hand out. Dylan, Burke, and Cristina hit the floor as Hannah runs from the room, leaving a smear of blood on the blue tile wall. We zoom in on Meredith's face as the music swells and the door closes in slow motion. Cristina slowly gets up and the camera rises up with her to find Meredith's hand inside Mr. Carlson. Meredith, breathing, hitches as she repeats, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Over and over again. All right, everybody take a deep breath and hold it for the next 7 days because this is the end of our episode today. I know, it's super cruel. These 2 episodes aired on the same night, but y'all have to wait until next week to find out what happens if the hospital explodes, if Bailey's husband lives to see her deliver a healthy baby. There's so much to wait for. And if you're new here, hi, I upload podcasts every Tuesday, wherever podcasts are available, along with a video version of the same episode to YouTube. And if you enjoyed this episode, I highly recommend checking out our Grey's Anatomy Christmas episode from a few months ago. You can find the link in the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, the link will be in the description below. Next week will, of course, be the part 2 of this giant Super Bowl episode. Until then, I'll catch you on the flippity flip. What did I do?